When you pull out your phone, and you just click a button to get food delivered, you probably think it's a pretty simple localized transaction.
No, for sure.
Like it's just you, the restaurant down the street, and maybe a driver navigating a few blocks.
Yeah.
But what if I told you the blueprint making all of that happen actually relies on this super fragile global infrastructure?
Right. Something that is, tracking your every move.
Exactly. Tracking you, scaling across 70 different languages, and being actively managed by, get this, an anonymous iguana.
I mean, it totally shatters the illusion of the local neighborhood economy completely.
It really does. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking something incredibly raw for you today.
Yeah, our source material isn't, some polished PR statement from a Silicon Valley startup.
No, definitely not a sanitized investor pitch deck either. We're looking at a literal technical snapshot of a working document.
A back-end interface complete with system warnings and raw text.
Yeah, outlining what it calls a hyperlocal delivery business model. It's got back-end collaboration notes and even these AI-generated blueprints.
It's essentially the digital exhaust of a business being built in real time.
That's a great way to put it, digital exhaust.
And it really exposes the tension between what a company wants to happen out there in the physical world and the incredibly rigid digital rules required to actually make it function.
So our mission for you today is to basically decode these fragments. We want to discover the invisible tech infrastructure required to make a seemingly simple food delivery service operate.
Right, because there's so much going on under the hood.
Exactly. And looking at the core business strategy outlined in this document, the first thing that just totally jumps out is this massive contradiction.
It is pretty glaring, yeah.
Right. Because amidst all the raw user interface text, there's a really clear numbered outline. It says 1, customer app 1, aggregator model. Then it lists delivery fees, and finally it has this very explicit directive.
Identify your niche.
Yes, identify your niche. But, when I think of an aggregator model, I picture a giant digital funnel.
That is the standard definition, yeah.
The whole point of an aggregator, whether you're talking about flights or hotels or a food delivery service, is to gather up all the available inventory in this chaotic real-world market and dump it into one single customer app.
You basically want every restaurant in the city on your platform.
Right. So if the goal is to aggregate everything to maximize volume, explicitly commanding the business to identify a niche seems to totally defeat the purpose of building a giant funnel in the first place.
Well, the tension between aggregation and specialization is actually the exact paradox that makes or breaks modern delivery platforms.
How so?
So the document pairs the aggregator model directly with delivery fees,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, that's in the outline.
In a business model that survives entirely on microtransactions, trying to be everything to everyone right out of the gate causes your unit economics to just collapse immediately.
Oh, wow. So launching citywide actually hurts the bottom line.
Absolutely. Because the logistics network gets stretched way too thin, consider the mechanics of just a single delivery.
Okay, walk me through it.
If your funnel is too wide, you end up with a driver accepting a dispatch to travel, say, 8 miles across town for a single cup of coffee.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
The delivery fee charged to the customer might be like $4. But the driver's time, the fuel, the vehicle wear and tear for a 16-mile round trip that far exceeds $4.
Not to mention the actual quality of the product you're delivering.
Right, exactly.
Because an 8-mile trip means cold coffee, which leads to a customer complaint and then a refund issued by the platform.
And a user who might just delete the app entirely out of frustration.
So the algorithm is essentially subsidizing a terrible physical experience just to fulfill a digital order.
That is the hidden cost of false scale. The platform loses money on the driver payout, it loses money on the refund, and it loses the lifetime value of that customer. So an aggregator can only survive by conquering specific, highly targeted niches first. Maybe your niche is late-night college campus food.
Oh, right, where you have a super dense population of hungry students.
Exactly. Thousands of students within a 1-mile radius of a dozen fast food kitchens.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's high-end corporate lunches in a specific 3-block downtown radius.
So you build the massive digital funnel, but you only pointed at a very specific high-density puddle to start with.
That is a perfect analogy, yeah. The puddle.
You get the restaurants, the customers, and the drivers all operating within this microscopic radius to ensure the math behind those delivery fees actually generates a profit.
And once you dominate that specific niche and your routing algorithm achieves maximum efficiency, then you identify the next niche. And the next one.
But the foundation of an aggregator model operating in a physical space requires ruthless specialization first.
Without density, the delivery fee model is mathematically impossible.
Okay, so assuming a business successfully maps out that dense niche, they still need a digital front door for those local users to walk through, right?
Right, the customer app mentioned in the outline.
Exactly. But the sources reveal this door is remarkably fragile. Like right at the top of the raw interface, the document throws a really hard warning.
Oh, the JavaScript warning.
Yes, it literally says JavaScript isn't enabled in your browser, so this file can't be opened, enable and reload. And right below that, a secondary warning about the browser version no longer being supported.
Please upgrade to a supported browser.
Yeah. So wait, if I simply haven't updated my phone's browser, or I have like a strict privacy blocker that disables JavaScript, the entire local business model just breaks down.
It does. Those warnings highlight the ultimate gatekeepers of the modern economy.
I mean, it seems incredibly risky to build a hyperlocal empire on the assumption that every single customer has perfectly updated, flawlessly syncing software.
It is risky, but it forces us to redefine what a delivery business actually is today. We call it a food delivery service, but the physical transaction is secondary.
Wait, the physical transaction like cooking the meal and dispatching the courier is secondary?
Completely secondary. The core business is real-time data execution.
Meaning the physical sandwich doesn't even exist to the network until the digital handshake is completed.
The transaction literally cannot legally or operationally occur until that handshake happens.
That is wild.
Think about it. An asynchronous web application requires JavaScript to constantly pull the server without refreshing the page. It needs to pull dynamic pricing surges.
Like if it's raining and fees go up.
Exactly. It needs to check menu availability down to the minute, tokenize your payment method for security, and ping your device's GPS coordinates to match you with a driver.
So if that foundational layer isn't perfectly synced between your device and the aggregator's server, the system doesn't just offer a degraded experience.
No, it halts entirely. As the document states, it literally can't be opened.
It's not less walking up to a brick-and-mortar restaurant where the front door has a sticky hinge, but you can still kind of push your way inside to order.
No sticky hinges in software.
Right. If your digital environment isn't perfectly calibrated to the aggregator specifications, that restaurant effectively vanishes from your reality.
Yeah.
You are locked out of the local economy.
It is a fragile house of cards. But, it's the infrastructure every modern business has mutually agreed to utilize.
Because the cost of running legacy systems or offline workarounds destroys the algorithmic efficiency we were just talking about.
Precisely. You lose the density and the speed.
But this strict technological gatekeeping creates a massive operational problem, right? If the business relies on frictionless volume within a highly targeted local niche, locking people out because of digital friction is just a death sentence.
They cannot afford to lose a single capable customer.
Which perfectly explains the heavy suite of accessibility tools integrated directly into the source document's foundation.
Yes. The interface demands total technical compliance, so it must simultaneously build bridges to ensure users can actually achieve that compliance.
Because the sources show these really extensive menus for accessibility, there are specific keyboard shortcuts for voice typing, like triggered by Shift plus Shift plus S.
And explicit commands to turn on screen reader support using Shift plus Alt plus Z.
Yeah, and even functions to verbalize to screen reader. We usually view these features as compliance measures, like a legal box to check at the end of software development just to avoid a lawsuit.
In a lot of industries, that might be true, but in the context of an aggregator fighting for a hyperlocal niche, deep accessibility integration is a core operational necessity.
So it's not an afterthought.
Not at all. Think back to the dynamic data execution we just discussed, a live delivery map tracking a courier, or a dynamic menu with countdown timers for special offers that creates immense digital friction for anyone using assistive technology.
Right, because a screen reader has to interpret a constantly moving visual map and somehow translate it into a sequential audio feed in real time.
Exactly.
And if the code isn't perfectly structured with all the right accessibility tags, the user just hears a chaotic wall of code.
It's completely unusable. If your app requires complex digital interactions, you are inherently building barriers.
And barriers kill the niche.
Yes. Designing an app with integrated screen reader support and voice typing ensures your niche is fully captured. If your target demographic includes, say, elderly users or visually impaired individuals,
Or even just a parent trying to order hands-free while driving.
right, For them, voice typing isn't just some nice perk. It is the only mechanism allowing that crucial digital handshake to occur.
It's like the digital environment adapts its shape to fit the user so the physical transaction can proceed.
That's the only way it works.
Because it takes 5 minutes of frustrating screen tapping just to fight with a poorly coded checkout button. The user will just close the app and find something in their fridge. The friction has to be zero.
Every single millisecond of friction increases the cart abandonment rate. Accessibility tools in this model are ultimately conversion optimization tools.
That makes total sense. But building this frictionless, highly adaptive digital door for a local niche triggers a massive hidden cost. And this leads to, honestly, the most jarring paradox in our source material today.
Hey, language support.
Yes. Opening the door to everyone locally forces the aggregator to scale its infrastructure globally. The document contains this overwhelming list of supported languages.
It's a huge list.
We are talking Afrikaans, Bahasa Indonesia, Català, Simreg, Islandska, Kiswahili, Nepali, Svenska, Khmer. I mean, the list covers dozens and dozens of languages.
It reveals a comprehensive global footprint embedded inside a strictly local blueprint.
Which is so weird. The literal title of the document is Hyperlocal Delivery Business Model. So why on earth does the infrastructure for a hyperlocal delivery service in, say, a suburb of London or downtown Chicago need a back-end architecture capable of supporting Icelandic and Khmer?
It seems crazy, right? But this highlights the distinct economic realities of software engineering versus physical logistics.
Okay, unpack that for me.
So, building the frictionless customer app we just described, the one capable of real-time algorithmic dispatching, dynamic GPS tracking, and seamless integration with deep accessibility tools that is astronomically expensive.
I can imagine.
We are looking at hundreds of millions of dollars in upfront engineering and server costs.
Yeah, you don't just whip up a flawless voice typing, screen reading, dynamic map application over a weekend using some generic template. It requires literal armies of engineers.
Exactly. So the physical service, the actual act of picking up a burrito and dropping it at a doorstep that is strictly hyperlocal.
Right.
But the software infrastructure required to facilitate that service must be global. The massive engineering cost of building that core aggregator engine can only be sustained financially if that exact same infrastructure is cloned, localized, and deployed worldwide.
Oh, I see. So the sandwich is local, but the code has to be global just to recoup the initial development costs.
Yes, it is essentially a franchise model for software.
You build the centralized engine once, and you translate the user interface into Bahasa Indonesia, Català, and Simreg, allowing you to drop that exact same business model into Jakarta, Barcelona, and Cardiff.
And localization at that scale is an engineering marvel in itself. Translating an app involves way more than just swapping vocabulary words around.
Because of the layouts.
Yeah, the entire user interface has to be modular enough to shift dynamically. A simple checkout button in English might require a text string that's 3 times as long in German.
Oh, true. German words can be super long.
Or it might require a complete layout reversal for right-to-left languages like Arabic. The global infrastructure has to adapt to all these local linguistic quirks without ever breaking that core JavaScript execution layer.
But managing a localized interface in over 70 languages across thousands of individual neighborhoods, that requires an impossible amount of real-time back-end oversight.
It's beyond human capacity.
Yeah, I mean, humans simply cannot write code, adjust dynamic pricing, route drivers, and translate menus simultaneously at that massive scale. Which brings us to the back-end reality of who or what is actually running this massive operation.
The raw interface notes provide a very clear, kind of unsettling picture of the modern management dynamic.
They really do. The sources show glimpses of these collaboration tools, right? There's an activity dashboard, commands to show live edits, approvals, and a version history.
But embedded in those tools is a critical system warning.
Yes. The text says, Gemini created these notes. They can contain errors, so should be double-checked. And furthermore, the system tracks an active collaborator watching the document. It lists one solitary viewer.
Anonymous iguana idol.
Anonymous iguana idol. The presence of the AI generating the foundational documents paired with this anonymous idling human avatar, it just perfectly encapsulates modern digital logistics.
It really does. The business relies on an automated AI Gemini, in this case to draft its blueprints, synthesize its notes, and likely execute the heavy lifting of the global scaling we just discussed.
Like localizing those 70 languages on the fly.
Exactly. The AI is basically building the tracks while the train is moving.
So the AI processes a massive volume and scales the logic, but the system explicitly acknowledges its own fallibility. It literally states the models can contain errors, so should be double-checked.
Right. The architecture demands a human in the loop to utilize those approval and live edit functions.
It's like the AI proposes the execution, but the system requires human liability to actually greenlight it.
But the human providing that vital liability isn't given a name, a title, or even an active status.
No, the human element overseeing this massive, fragile global infrastructure has been reduced to anonymous iguana idol.
It's incredible.
I mean, the gig economy hasn't just gigified the delivery drivers, right? It has gigified the management layer itself.
That is exactly what's happening.
The human is just a randomly generated animal avatar sitting passively in the passenger seat, occasionally touching the steering wheel if the algorithmic car drifts to the wrong lane.
We are no longer the builders of the system. We are just the anonymous monitors waiting to click approve when the system pauses. The scale of the technology has completely outpaced meaningful human participation.
And that dynamic is what currently manages the delivery of your dinner. Let's synthesize this journey for you, our listener, because the gap between the physical act of getting food and the digital reality orchestrating it is just massive.
It's a huge disconnect.
We started by looking at raw, messy back-end warnings for a hyperlocal delivery business. And what we uncovered is that this is not just a simple transaction between a neighborhood kitchen and a courier on a bicycle.
No, it is a highly complex, deeply fragile ecosystem defined by its competing demands.
Right. It is an AI-assisted technological marvel that requires a business to ruthlessly conquer a hyper-specific local niche while simultaneously operating a code base localized in dozens of languages worldwide just to break even.
All to make the delivery fee math work.
Exactly. It requires building an application so seamlessly accessible that it automatically morphs to fit complex physical needs, yet is so unforgiving that a slightly outdated web browser will cause the entire local supply chain to just vanish from your screen.
The illusion of the local is entirely maintained by the reality of the global.
That is a perfect summary. The next time you open a customer app to pay a delivery fee, you aren't just buying a meal. You are engaging with a massive global infrastructure that is tracking your accessibility requirements, verifying your device's JavaScript layer, executing real-time algorithmic dispatching, and powering a localized network that stretches from your specific zip code all the way to Iceland.
Which leaves us with a really critical, lingering question to consider as these platforms continue to evolve.
What's that?
Well, the foundational blueprints of our local physical world now rely almost entirely on AI models that openly admit they can contain errors. And the primary line of defense preventing those digital errors from breaking our physical supply chains is an anonymous, idling human user tasked with double-checking the automated output.
The iguana.
Exactly.
As these systems dictate more and more of our physical reality, we have to ask ourselves, who is actually shaping the future of our local neighborhoods? Is it the algorithm designing the blueprint, the aggregator dictating the niche, or the anonymous iguana idly watching the dashboard?